Welcome. I want to introduce you today to Sam and to Simon. And this is a bit of a different setup to what I normally do. It's the first time I've ever done an interview, really. So it's an honor to introduce Sam and Simon today. And we're going to talk about health, about fasting, about empowerment, about fear, about overcoming fear, about societal conditioning, around disease and diagnosis. We're going to talk about natural healing and whatever else comes out, whatever magic is revealed. So let's start with you, Sam. If you could introduce yourself, if you could share a bit about your story, about your diagnosis, how you've come to the island.
My name is Sam Rosen. I'm from northwest London, and in December 2019 I was diagnosed with stage 2 thyroid cancer, and the solution offered by the surgeon who I saw at the hospital was to remove my entire thyroid gland, to remove a number of lymph nodes, to then fill me with radioactive iodine, for me to take a pill every day, and that would be it. And I immediately thought, I don't want to do this. It's going to turn me into another person. I don't want to be relying on medication every day, and I don't want to have lots of sort of cuts and things here. I don't want to be filled with poison, and I want to be functioning normally and naturally. So when COVID, in February 2020, I was talking to somebody in Italy, which was the first country in Europe to go into lockdown, and she was explaining to me how horrible it was there. I could see in London, where I was living, with supermarket shelves stripped and a weird atmosphere, that it was going to happen in London, England, very soon. So I decided I would leave, and I'd been in Koh Phangan many years before, and I knew it was a lovely island with no airport, a wonderful tropical island, and I decided to come here because I figured that we would be largely left alone, and I did. And then 2 days later, I arrived on the 21st of March, and I think it was 2 days later, Thailand closed its borders. And I've been here ever since. I came for a month, but I've been here nearly a year now, and I thought this would be the most wonderful place for me to heal myself. So I've been doing that. I've been doing lots of yoga. I've just finished a yoga teacher's training course, and I'm loving it here. Very happy just to stay here. No particular desire to rush back to England.
Thank you, Sam. And Simon, if you could introduce yourself and share about your role, how you met Sam, how you guys have been interacting for the past few years.
My name's Simon, and I work my field is naturopathy and nutrition. I got into that field after my mum died. She died of cancer, and she was really poisoned by the chemotherapy. It was a very drastic deterioration in her health, and everyone could see how she was devastated by the treatment, and it ultimately killed her, and it just sparked a whole process of researching alternatives. Something inside got activated, and I thought there's got to be another way. It just has to be. And then of course I started to find answers, alternatives, and I've been exploring that field ever since. And that was just over 10 years ago when I started. And Sam, I was put in touch with Sam through a mutual friend, and we've been collaborating for the last year or so, just over a year.
Just over a year, yeah.
And now it's wonderful that he's got a team of wonderful healers who are supporting him, and you yourself are incredible. You're so disciplined and so intelligent in the way you're navigating your healing journey. I really have so much respect for that. Yeah, so And I came here, Sam, I was already in Thailand when the whole COVID thing started. I was in southwest Thailand, on Koh Libong, a small island on the west side. And Sam said, come to Koh Phangan. And I thought, well, the border's going to close, will I get there? And then I got kicked off the island and I thought, right, I'm meant to go, it's going to be fine. And it was. I got a lift to Surat Thani, and then I got here the day when they actually stopped people coming into the island. I was one of the last people to get here.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So both of you are here under some super karmic circumstances.
It really feels like it.
I love that. So many things fall into alignment when we're in flow and when we surrender to what is, and when we actually listen to our gut instincts. You know, you receive a diagnosis, they tell you, here's a surgery, you've got 10 days to decide, and everything in your being is telling you there's got to be another way. This can't be the only option. And to me, this is one of the most frightening things when you're receiving a very scary diagnosis, to be told you only have one option, and it's this. It's this or inevitable death or pain and suffering. And the fact that people are given such a difficult choice to make, you know, that invariably they don't know how many other options are available to them. They don't know that there's a huge potential for the human body to regenerate itself when it's given the opportunity to do so, and the space to do so, and the support and the correct environment. And it really is my life's purpose to bring natural health and to bring intuitive living and to bring this kind of trust that what we feel and that what we're guided towards is guiding us and taking us towards our higher development and evolution. And really, I feel that the more we support each other in sharing this message and sharing our testimonials, in encouraging others not to take the conventional route, because if the conventional route worked, great, no worries, but it's really not working. And all three of us here have got experiences, you know, with cancer. I recently had a friend, not a close friend, but someone on the periphery of my friendship group in London. I found out he passed away from cancer at the age of 36. And it broke my heart. And then I literally sat there and I was like, he didn't die of cancer, he died of chemotherapy, he died of being poisoned. And he wanted to live so badly, and he left behind a beautiful young widow. And it's like seeing lives torn apart by just lack of understanding and this deep brainwashing that we're all under as a result of the various systems that rule our society. And I'm so grateful to have met Sam and to be given an opportunity to really dive deep and utilize these amazing tools of fasting and colon cleansing and inner work and emotional release, and really looking at the energetics that underlie a diagnosis, because it's never just the physical, right? It's a mind-body, and it's about how we can access all of the subtle incompletions and patterns that we carry that alter our vibration and our frequency, and eventually ignored for so long, something has to come up to the surface. And then how do we approach this? Is it with love? Is it with surrender? Is it with compassion towards the self? Or is it with fear? Just cut it out, get rid of it, I don't care the consequences. And I found it so fascinating when we were talking, Sam, about when they consider, you know, they said your surgery to remove the thyroid has a 95% success rate.
Yeah.
Except when you look at the definition of success rate, is basically 5 years.
5 year window, yeah.
5 year window of survival. They don't speak at all about the quality of life you have in those 5 years or after the 5 year threshold. And the reality is that you don't survive. An aspect of you dies when you become poisoned. Your consciousness is blocked from expressing itself. And I really want to see you shine, Sam, because you've got so much to give to the world.
And I am shining, I'm loving it here. The big breakthrough for me was I came back after seeing the surgeon, and I said, there's got to be another way. And I said, I'm not going to do any work, I'm stopping everything, and I'm just going to research and research and research. And I researched for 15 hours a day. I was on the web, I was buying books on Kindle, I was reading them. And then I discovered this book called German Cancer Breakthrough, which was written by an American journalist we spent some time in Germany, Austria and Switzerland, where the regulations as far as complementary or alternative cancer clinics are a lot more lax than Europe and United States. And he effectively researched 25 of these clinics, and I went through all of the listings that he put together, and he'd been along and seen the proprietors and met people that had been through the clinics, and also talked about the various different cures that they were offering. And immediately my world opened up, that there are so many other possibilities other than what's being offered to me. And I started calling, registering with some of these clinics, speaking to them, so that I could really get deep into it, with a view to perhaps going to one of them. I didn't actually do that, but it opened my world for me in terms of, yes, there is another way. And after a few days, I decided that I was going to say no to the surgery. And the other key aspect of it was not just writing to the surgeon saying I'm not going to do the surgery, but it was also putting together a proper letter to my son explaining why I'm doing this and my reasons behind it.
Would you like to share a little bit about why you did this, about how he felt when you received the diagnosis and what his angle was?
Well, my son, it was very obviously very upset, and said, "Dad, whatever it is, just I'll be with you. I'll hold your hand in this process." But he had recently graduated from university, and he was obviously researched very carefully, and he said, "Dad, this has got a wonderful success rate, 95%, and he loves me and he wanted me to live, really, wants me to live, and just thought that was the only way, really." And I didn't think so, and I also wanted to make sure that, having made my decision, he was relatively comfortable, and he wasn't to start with, but as time went on and he could see me sort of looking good and coming here as well and getting better and better and better, and continuing to have scans every 3 months, and being well advised and well supported, he feels that I've made the right decision so far. Although the last scan showed a tiny setback, in that the lymph nodes have the tumours in a couple of the lymph nodes has increased a little, and the tumour in the main thyroid has not increased, although the scan before that showed a 25% reduction, which gave me a huge amount of encouragement. So there was a little bit of a setback last time. I'm not discouraged. If anything, I'm even more determined now to heal myself naturally, and I'll do whatever it takes. I've got the discipline, and I can drive fast. I've proved to myself that I can drive fast for 5 days, and I'm up for it and whatever else it takes. Happily.
Beautiful. You know, healing is not linear. We always think, okay, I'm going to go from A to B, and it's going to be a steady, gradual line towards success, and anything that doesn't fit this projected expectation is bad, or is, you know, a step back, and that's simply, the body doesn't work that way. Healing is very cyclical, and sometimes it can look like a step back, but actually it's the body eliminating something or doing something, and then actually a huge leap forward happens, a bit like, you know, after a drought or a fire. You're looking, everything looks destroyed, it's really bad, but actually the plants have dug really deep roots during this time of drought, or now the soil is really full of nutrition and life sprouts up again. So it's not cyclical, it's not linear, it's cyclical, and then the less we attach to expectations and to goals and to outcomes, and actually focusing more on how you feel, more on energetically where you're at, because to me this is a much greater indicator. And I feel very optimistic that after this cascade fast, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, that Sam and I are going to do together. I really feel that when you go for your next scan after that, you're going to see a significant improvement, because cascade fasting is so powerful, and we'll explain a little bit more as we get into that. But I'd like to introduce you a little bit more into the picture, Simon, and share a bit how your expertise has helped Sam, and kind of what your view is on cancer treatment and on cancer diagnoses generally.
Well, I think, as we've all said, we realised fairly a while ago that there was something radically wrong with the current system that we have, the allopathic medical approach to treating cancer. It clearly doesn't work. If it were effective, we would see the results, and what we're actually getting is increased rates of cancer and poorer outcomes. So when I trained in nutrition and naturopathy, of course we looked at all different diseases, including cancer, and to me it's clear that it makes much more sense to detoxify the body, to optimize the function of all of the organs, especially the digestive system, the organs of elimination, but everything, the immune system, cellular health, getting right down at a cellular level. How can we optimize the function, the functioning of our cells and the energy that they produce, which is used by the whole body. More recently, I've started fasting myself. I've dry fasted. I've done up to 3 days. I haven't yet done a 5-day one, but it's on the radar when it feels in flow. And I myself had a severe neurological disorder in childhood that was caused by a childhood vaccine, the MMR vaccine. And so for much of my childhood, I had mini seizures, and I would shake, and I couldn't talk properly, and it was very uncomfortable being in my body. All of these techniques, fasting, proper nutrition, detoxification, the use of carefully selected superfoods and super herbs, and all of this has also helped me. And I do, some people say to me when I describe how many different chronic diseases might be treated naturopathically, they often say, well, it seems like it's the same treatment for every disease. How is that possible? But the truth is that you could almost say that there is one disease with many different manifestations outwardly, but at the core, it's really one disease. I think you're definitely in the right place to heal and balance the core of what's happening. I have no doubt that you'll be successful.
Yeah, the energy with which we enter things, and our intention and our integrity and our commitment, all of these play such a huge role. And often I find in cancer patients who don't survive, there's a lack of a will to live on some level. And often it's subconscious, it's below the surface, so the person isn't aware in a way that they've given up. But already in life they've given up, they've stopped their hobbies, maybe they've been people pleasing for so long and self-negating for so long that they've even forgotten what it is they want, and in a way they've already stopped living. They're already living very predictable lives, or lives that don't light them up on fire, and the physical diagnosis is almost kind of like the last event after all of the energetics have been kind of leading towards that. And I think empowerment and having hope, and I can only imagine how exciting it must have been for you to go down this rabbit hole and suddenly realize, wow, there's a whole world of opportunity here for me. And diagnoses always give us a chance to really take stock of where we're at. Do I want to live? Do I want to live? Do I want to live in an incapacitated way without a thyroid? No. And then we make empowered choices. And often the energetic blockage here with the thyroid, because it sits here on the Vishuddha chakra, and it's about self-expression and about how we speak our reality into existence. And very often when we behave in various ways that aren't in alignment with our higher selves, with our true purpose here, particularly if we're very conscious and awake people and we know things about our talents, our gifts, maybe what we're here to do to serve humanity, but we don't do those things for various reasons. We resist, we self-sabotage, and then this lack of self-expression at an energetic level comes into physical manifestation here in the throat. So as well as going through various fasting processes, which again we're going to talk to about in a minute, Sam and I, and perhaps you guys, have also been doing a lot of this kind of more metaphysical work around dropping limiting beliefs and stepping out of fear and into control of what it is you can control, and complete acceptance and surrender of that which you cannot control, and really realigning to nature. And this is what fasting is all about, because the more we fast, the more we eliminate acidity and mucus from the body, the more our consciousness shines through, and then the more we express on an authentic level, and then these imbalances are redressed. And the disease, the diagnosis, whatever it might be, it's always a gift if we choose to look at it that way. It's a shake up, it's a wake up call, and we can go with it whichever way we choose, because we really are the creators of our lives in every given moment. And it's one of these kind of forks in the road where it's like, do I stay in London, potentially get a surgery and maybe stay locked up in my flat and don't see anyone for a year? Or do I go into the unknown and explore this more esoteric, potentially more dangerous way of doing things, but actually the reality proves to be so different, and you're full of life and you're having so much fun on this island. And the healing that takes place is not just physical, it's healing the traumas and the incompletions within us that cause us to act in ways that maybe we don't express fully, or maybe we hold ourselves back. So I'm really excited as we go through this 30-day cascade fast. We're also going to have a few sessions, I'm thinking maybe one a week, if you feel aligned with that, where we can talk about this more emotional and energetic side of things, because it's such a ignored aspect of diagnosis. The medical system, the allopathic medical system, is still very much in this paradigm of the physical and the material, and even physics, science has moved on from this. This is basically like Newtonian physics, and nothing has advanced for the last few hundred years. And the reality is, no, we have quantum physics. We're understanding that you can have an atom at one end of the universe and an atom at the other end of the universe, and they're somehow connected, divinely connected, and there's no such thing as space and time, and they're somehow able to communicate with each other, and there's so much more going on than just this obvious, gross, physical reality. And
we're
healing is
multidimensional beings also, aren't we?
Of course, exactly. It's not just this physical body, right? We have all of these more subtle bodies. And in which way are they out of balance? How are we not emotionally integrated or emotionally healthy? So yeah, I'm interested to hear from both of you, both with your own experience with your mum passing of cancer, and then with this diagnosis, what kind of process you went through in terms of fear, in terms of maybe denial or fighting it, or anger, and maybe how you came to a resolution.
Well, I certainly have had my wobbles, really, along the path, and but those are all right, and somehow the alternative, which seems to be surgery, for me is so brutal and so savage, really, and horrific, that I couldn't imagine it, really, that I will do anything, whatever it takes, to avoid it. And that's been my key driver so far. And coming here to this island, I've been here nearly a year now, and I've enjoyed it so much. I just a couple of days ago completed a 28-day, 200-hour yoga teachers training course. So I'm an official yoga teacher after doing Ashtanga yoga for 37 years. And there's an advanced 300-hour training in June, which I intend to do as well. So I'm having lots of fun and loving it here. And just know, with the love and support and my determination around me, really, that one way or another I will get through this.
It's the right attitude. That's the way to go. Is there anything you'd like to add from your experience?
Sure. I was going to say that I think we all have an inner tuning fork, and some people are more attuned to it or aware of it, and other people don't listen to it so much, because we've all been conditioned and indoctrinated to be perhaps overly rational, I would say. We prefer rationality and logic, and society tends to shun intuition, gut feeling, emotional intelligence, and it's part of a kind of a mass misogyny actually that's been going on for perhaps millennia, but definitely centuries. The feminine is devalued and suppressed, and the masculine dominates, and you can see it in so many different areas of society. And in the way we think, we like rational, logical thinking. It's reliable, it's structured, it's yang, it's masculine. Feminine intuition, inner guidance, feels a bit wishy-washy and not reliable. But it's a huge mistake really to ignore that. It's very much the equal of rational and logical thinking. And when they work together, I feel that intuition and gut feeling and inner guidance really is a kind of almost like a radar or a navigation system that we just intuitively, if we tune in, we intuitively know what is in resonance and what is not. And then the rational and logical mind can come in and perfect and kind of dig and go in a little bit deeper, but it's ultimately our inner guidance that should be doing the driving. And instead we're using logic and rationality to do the driving, and that can take us down rabbit holes. And especially with a Newtonian paradigm, we just go down these rabbit holes and we can't see the wood for the trees. So I think those people who embark on a journey like the one you've embarked on are often much more in tune with this inner tuning fork, because the moment we come across an alternative, something inside just goes, yes, this resonates as truth. And I think this is such a powerful way to navigate, and I encourage people, I'm sure you do, encourage people to get in touch with that.
Thank you. I'd like to hear, Sam, kind of what you've been doing since you've embarked on this self-healing journey. How have you changed your diet? How have you changed your lifestyle?
The first thing I did really was I thought, right, I've got to look at the foods and the lifestyle that may have caused and promoted this cancer, this toxicity. So I cut out as many of those foods as possible. And that was probably in the first period. But it was about 14 months ago that I met a guy in London, Conrad, who was a student of Dr. Robert Morse in the United States. And he has been helping me with the Morse program, which is primarily eating fruit. So my diet for the last 14 months or so has been pretty much fruit, a little bit of vegetables occasionally, salads, but and I'm certainly in the right place here. Grapes, watermelon, mango, papaya, oranges, apples.
Pineapples.
And pineapple, of course, yeah.
Dragon fruit.
Yeah.
Dragon fruit.
And you've been fasting too, right?
And fasting, yeah. Certainly 1 day, 3 days, and my maximum is 5. And
this is a dry fast, 5 days dry fast.
Dry fasting, which I actually find much easier than wet fasting.
Me too.
And
more enjoyable too, right?
Yeah. And I've also been a few months ago, although I haven't done it for a little while, I've been fasting and then going to a doctor here in town and taking 60 grams of intravenous vitamin C. And I'm following an experiment which was done by Dr. Professor Walter Longo at University of Southern California, which he did with rats. He had 2 groups of rats, and they were both given cancer, and they were both given intravenous vitamin C, but the group that fasted compared with the group that didn't fast had very, very much better results. And his fasting was certainly not dry fasting.
Mm-hmm. Dry fasting, for those of you who maybe are new to this, it's a complete fast. So it means you're not eating any food, but you're not drinking any water or any juice or anything. And it's been said to be 3 to 5 times more effective and more powerful than water fasting. Water fasting has its benefits for sure, but if you're really, really looking to get down deep with some imbalances within the body and to really help reactivate the endocrine system and to really help support the central nervous system and the organs of elimination, then dry fasting is the top of the mountain. So they say 1 day of dry fasting is equivalent to 3 to 5 days of water fasting, depending how much water you drink. And the less water you drink, really, the more you're detoxing. So a dry fast is a complete fast, and it allows this internal metabolization of our inner waters. So we basically, a bit like the body goes into ketosis and we start feeding from our own supply, the body also starts hydrating from its own supply. So within fat cells, we have a lot of stored water, and the body's very intelligent and it can access these storages of water, and we're able to go actually for a very long time. We've, between us, done 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. I have a friend who I'll be doing an interview with soon, actually, and he recently completed 20 days dry fast. Can you believe it? So he's
I thought
really,
the record was 18.
Yes, he's broken the world record, and he had such a beautifully potent spiritual experience. It's not just about healing the physical imbalances. That's kind of almost a side effect. It's kind of the amazing spiritual connection, and I'm so excited to see how you feel and how you flower during these 30 days, because cascade fasting is very, very powerful. And what cascade fasting does, it combines the amazing healing potential of dry fasting with astringency and like pulling out mucus and waste from the body, and really using the astringent fruits to rehydrate and remineralize the body and alkalize the body. So in between phases of dry fasting, Sam and I are going to be drinking lots of fruit juice, specifically kind of focusing on the astringent fruits, but not exclusively. We can drink green juices too, you can have herbal tea if you want, but it's the astringency, so the citrus fruits, the lemons, the dark purple grapes, the watermelon, the pomegranate, Trifala, also very astringent, really nice supplement. These help pull out waste and mucus and toxicity from the body. So we'll have one phase of dry fasting, and a really good analogy for this is if you imagine a towel that's wet and it's full of stagnant water and it's kind of really putrefying, and there's lots of flies and bacteria and worms coming to it, because this is what's happening. These are the parasites inside of us. They've come to clean up the putrid matter that sits there uneliminated. And you imagine this towel, and you basically dry fast. So this towel gets drier, 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 and the dirt, the filth, all the waste is being squeezed out of it as it's getting dry, and it's beginning to cake on the top, And then you rehydrate, you break the dry fast, and then you plunge this towel into water, and it's completely, hydrating, and a lot of the filth will come out, and then you wring the towel again, and that's the second phase of dry fasting. And then again you rehydrate, and then you wring the towel again, and each time is longer. So each time it's kind of a stronger, deeper squeeze. And by the end it's 30 days in total, and it's basically 1 day of dry fasting, 1 day of fruits and fruit juice, 2 days of dry fasting, 2 days of fruits, 3 days of dry fasting, 3 days fruits, 4 days, 4 days, 5 days, 5 days. So by the end, Sam will be doing 5 days of dry fasting, followed by 5 days of fruit juice and fruit, and also incorporating a lot of colon cleansing into this protocol. And the colon cleansing, again, really helps support the body in this process of elimination, because the colon is one of our main organs of elimination. And also on his days, we call them wet days, so the 15 out of 30 days when Sam will be consuming liquids and eating fruits, he'll also be doing lots of saunas, really supporting his body with body work, sound healing, all sorts of these amazing tools that we have available here to us on the island. And I've decided to join Sam, so we're going to be starting together on Monday. Today is Thursday, so just after the weekend, and we're going to go through this together, and I'm going to support you, and I'm going to have your back. And afterwards we're going to do another interview again. We're going to see how it went for you, what experiences you had, how you feel. Maybe we'll check in with you again once you've had a scan. And I feel this is going to be very, very powerful and very game-changing.
It's beautiful that you're accompanying Sam on this cascade fast. It's really lovely.
It really aligned actually, because I mentioned Trevor. So for those of you who are curious, Fasting with Trevor is his Instagram handle, and he did these 20 days dry. And for me, I was like, wow, it blew my mind. Mm-hmm. And I haven't done any longer dry fasting for over 1.5 years now. And it suddenly it really excited me. Like I really want to go for one of these longer dry fasts and experience some more of the really, really potent kind of spiritual activation that I felt before. But it really helps to prepare. So when you do these longer dry fasts, the cleaner you are when you begin, the cleaner your colon is when you begin, the longer you're able to go and the less symptomatic the fast will be. So really for me, I intended to do this cascade fast for 30 days to prepare for this longer dry fast. So after the 30 days, I'm probably going to spend a couple of weeks hydrating with fruits and juices, probably not eating any cooked food, and then I'm going to jump into a longer dry fast. So I'm going to see if I can go 10 days plus, maybe 15 plus, who goes? I'm trying not to put any numbers on it. But when we started talking and you said to me about this latest scan that you had that wasn't, as encouraging as previous ones, and it just like everything clicked into place, and I was like, that's it, we're going to do it together. And I always find group energy is so potent when you fast, even if it's just the two of us. It makes such a difference to have someone there supporting you. And I'm so grateful that Simon is also on board, and you've got so many other people here on this island who love and support you.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And there are two types of dry fast. There's soft dry fast and there's a hard dry fast. So a soft dry fast where you can brush your teeth and you can have showers, and a hard dry fast where there's no brushing of the teeth and no showers. No
contact basically with water whatsoever. Yeah.
And we're talking hard, are we?
We're talking hard, yeah. We don't have to be super extreme. I think sometimes, let's say it's day 4 and you're like real smelly. I think it's okay to just get some water and quickly splash your parts.
Okay.
So long as you're not submerging yourself in the shower, so long as you towel dry yourself really well afterwards. But I certainly don't recommend like swimming or obviously saunas on dry days, because afterwards there's just even increased temptation to hydrate, and you don't want to overly dehydrate the body. So yeah, and the dry fast, you go much deeper with it than the soft dry fast when you do it hard, because the skin's very absorbent. So if you sit in some water, the skin will begin to access the water. Similarly, if you do enemas or some kind of colon cleansing, the colon and the GI tract is very absorbent. So if you put water up there on a dry day, you're basically breaking the dry fast. So during the time when Sam will be and myself will be dry fasting, there'll be basically, aside from maybe like a little tiny bit every now and then, basically no contact with water. And then on the wet days, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to really flood the system with lots of hydration, focusing on living structured waters, so fruit juices, especially the astringent fruit juices, maybe greens, wheatgrass, whatever you sort of feel in alignment with, and then obviously any fruit you want to eat. And also we'll be doing colon cleansing on those wet days. So Sam will be doing enemas. So he's already got an enema bag, maybe on the way now.
No, I've got it.
You've got it, so right, great. And then I introduced Sam with my lovely colonic therapist on the island, Sazu, and her Instagram handle is Poop Better with Sazu, which I think is so nice. Check her out, she's amazing. It's Gravity Colonics, and she's so passionate about what she does. So after he breaks his 2-day dry fast, and then 3-day dry fast, 4-day dry fast, and 5-day dry fast, after a few hours of hydrating, Sam's going to go to Sazu and he's going to have a colonic. So really you're going to be having 4 colonics over the 30 days. And then also on the other days, he'll be doing daily enemas to really, really help support the body in its process of elimination. And Sam actually went this morning for his first
Sazu
session.
this morning, yes.
Would you be willing to share some of your experience?
Well, it was really wonderful, and a huge amount of mucus came out.
Nice.
Wow.
Potent. Normally when you do an enema, you can put maybe 2, 4, 6, 8 liters through you, depending on how committed you are, how many rounds you do. When you go for a colonic, it's like 60, 70 liters, it's such a huge amount of water, and it goes very deep. And also you get stomach massage, and lots of gas, you said as well, came out.
Loads of gas, yeah.
And there's lots of fermentation when we detox, because what's happening, we're eliminating a lot of acidity, and often when there's acidity sitting there, it attracts bacteria, and then the bacteria begin to ferment, and all sorts of things are happening inside the body. So it really, really helps to release a lot of this trapped wind, because it's kind of poisonous air, really. You want to get it out of the body, and also, yes, putrid, exactly. And the body is very sensitive. Even a gas can have a great deal of poisonous effect inside the body. And also just on a physical comfort level, it feels so good to just get that out and have a flat tummy and not feel inflamed or sensitive in this area, as often is the case when we detox. And this is why I really, really emphasize the importance of colon cleansing when you're detoxing, and specifically when dry fasting, because actually dry fasting without doing colon cleansing can put a lot of acidic waste back into the body. So during a dry fast, a lot will be eliminated via the colon, and unless some irrigation takes place, because largely the colon is suppressed, the function is suppressed, so it's not going to be eliminating naturally, and then this waste sits there. And it's been, you mentioned, Simon, earlier, the cellular health, like each and every one of our cells poops, and then it goes through various organs of elimination, and then eventually some of that ends up in the colon, and the peristalsis of the GI tract isn't happening because there's fasting, there's not even any liquids being consumed. So unless afterwards we purge this, a lot of it can end up basically being recirculated back in the system. We call this auto-intoxication. And a lot of the symptoms of fasting and breaking the fast, a lot of the very intense physical and emotional symptoms that people experience can largely be mitigated and maybe even completely eliminated by doing colon cleansing. And I'm curious how you felt, kind of energetically, how your mood was, how you felt after getting that stuff out of you today.
Wonderful, really, really, really good. No, I feel it now, actually. It's lovely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
No
and when you see
protein at all.
Sazu, she's 37, I think, and she looks so beautiful. She's got amazing skin, and she's testament to how important it is to keep cleansing ourselves, keep getting this stuff out. Simon, I'm wondering, what kind of advice would you have for Sam as he undergoes during this cascade fast from a kind of more homeopathic angle?
Or maybe from a more of a naturopathic perspective.
Yeah.
I was interested listening to you describe especially the astringent fruits and the juices, and that just makes so much sense to me also. So that sounds really great, really, really good way to go, and I'm excited about cascade fast also. One thing that did come up for me was around getting as much of the micronutrients and balanced nutrition, and I don't know whether that would be done perhaps after the cascade fast or before, or whether maybe some elements would be incorporated. And you mentioned kind of having some of the grasses like wheatgrass, and I was also thinking about chlorella. Is that something that you sometimes advise?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
great.
and it can really help bind to a lot of the waste and toxicity, because chlorella has a sort of a negative charge, a bit like bentonite clay, and it acts as a binder, and it can help stick to these things, and then we eliminate them. So I fully support you taking superfoods. I think shilajit is an amazing healing clay that contains a lot of these nutrients and for me, it's kind of, you've got a period of fasting and then you've got a period of rebuilding. And what's great about the cascade fast is that you're allowing some rebuilding to take place in between periods of fasting, but that rebuilding is happening with fruits and greens and herbs. And in many ways, you're still continuing to fast. It's just you've taken the foot off the gas slightly. So at the end of the 30 days, you'll definitely be introducing a lot more fiber into the diet, focusing more on, like you say, rebuilding, on maybe eating and incorporating a lot more greens and vegetables. And I'm a great proponent of the transition diet, of really using vegetables and mucus lean grains like millet or quinoa when appropriate, and not demonizing cooked food necessarily, because it's the quality of the cooked food that you're eating and the kind of cooked food that you're eating. You could eat a cooked food meal that is completely mucus free and very low in salt and very low in fat, and can actually really support and nurture the system. So really for Sam, as he basically looks to rebuild after this period of fasting, the focus will be on how can we maintain as much of a mucus free / mucus lean kind of angle, whilst at the same time still doing some intermittent dry fasting, still supporting the system, maybe with 1 day a week dry fast. So the body's still continuing to heal and eliminate, but also has the opportunity to remineralize. Chlorophyll is also an amazing supplement that you could get and you could incorporate into your wet days. and it really helps oxygenate the blood. Triphala also does this. There's haritaki, one of the 3 ingredients in Triphala, very potent at decalcifying the pineal gland, and it oxygenates the blood by 300%. And when we're dry fasting, this is really, really beneficial. So taking Triphala during your dry fast, obviously on the wet days only, and then as you prepare for the dry fast, and also afterwards, will help support the body with elimination. And also the astringency in the Triphala will really help pull things through. Another important thing to consider is potassium. So I always encourage, before you go into any period of fasting, and specifically dry fasting, to really top up your body's potassium levels, because when we are dehydrated, potassium levels always go down. So there's obviously a lot of dehydration that takes place within the dry fast, and then the more we can kind of mitigate the diminution of the potassium, the better. So eating lots of bananas, eating lots of potassium-rich foods over the next few days as you prepare for your fast, and then also during the wet days of the cascade fast, really introduce as many potassium-rich foods into your diet.
What are your thoughts on magnesium supplementation? Do you ever recommend that during a fast also?
I do. My favorite way of supplementing with magnesium is to do it topically, because it's actually much more easily assimilated by the body that way. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of isolated chemistry. I find whenever we try to supplement with something that's been synthesized in the lab versus something that is bioavailable, the body reacts to it very differently. So personally, I don't generally tend to recommend isolated chemistry, but I do feel that magnesium is something that a lot of people are very low in, and it's something that can actually be very easily rectified with the topical application, and that is bioavailable for the body, and it can definitely help support the central nervous system during this period of fasting. So absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. It's kind of exceptional, magnesium.
Yeah.
It's such an important mineral.
Yes.
I often describe it as the conductor of the orchestra, and the other minerals and the other instruments. It's kind of very central in terms of how the minerals work together.
I really like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Beautiful. Great. I think.
I'm excited.
Yeah, this is probably going to begin to wrap up now our first video. We're going to record some more videos, as we said, as we go down this exciting journey together. So thank you guys for watching. I was going to ask you, Sam, if there was, to wrap up, if there was something you'd like to share with anybody who might be watching this, who maybe has received a cancer diagnosis themselves, or maybe their family members or friends or any loved ones, how they can support them, and just what advice you might have for anyone who's dealing with cancer in any way in this moment.
Don't just assume there's only one way. There are always lots of other possibilities, and I suppose in simplistic terms is really clean out your body, because from my understanding, I know you agree with this, that cancer is a toxicity. It's a build-up of toxicity over many years. I didn't just get this cancer. It probably took 12, maybe 15 years to get it into my body. It's probably hardened mucus and plaque, really, which is made up of weak cells which can't kill themselves, so they replicate, and their speed of replication is probably in tune with the amount of toxicity. And as far as I'm concerned, I've got this toxicity, it's in there, and my job now is to remove it. And I think if anyone that has been diagnosed with cancer can broadly think in those terms, I really do hope it would help, and will help. And I'm doing this obviously for myself and to inspire others, as I know you are, and you would like as well, Simon.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think that's about it for the moment.
Thank you, Sam. How about you,
you.
Simon? Any final words?
I think I'd just like to reiterate, I think people should educate themselves and be willing and have the courage to look outside of the current paradigm. You know, what we think that there's only one way of understanding disease, but it's really just a paradigm. And if we look back throughout history, there've been many paradigms and they were very limiting, and once we move past that paradigm, it's very easy to see how we got a lot of things wrong. And I think we're due for a paradigm shift right now, and I think a lot of this information is going to become much more widely accepted. So I really encourage people to educate themselves, to be willing to open their mind up to alternatives, because actually once we start looking, it all starts to kind of make sense, and then it tends to flow. People can be surprised, and you can often have a kind of oh my goodness, it's so obvious now.
The scales have fallen from my eyes. Are there any resources or books that you could recommend that have really impacted your journey?
Yeah, good question. Well, there's a documentary series called The Truth About Cancer. There's also there's another series, I think it was called something about spontaneous remissions. I can't quite remember the name, but we can post it in the comments afterwards.
We'll share some links underneath, and I'll share your social media so you guys can find each other and connect, and things that we've mentioned we'll pop them down below for ease of reference. Really nice to hear. Yeah.
And I would add German Cancer Breakthrough, which I was talking about before, Dr. Robert Morse's book, the Detox Miracle Source book, and Sergey Filonov's book, 20 Questions and Answers About Dry Fasting.
Yeah. So in Russia, dry fasting is really not very taboo at all, and actually it's practiced pretty widely. And Dr. Filanov, there are a few others, have really gone out there and experimented and done so many studies to prove the efficacy of dry fasting, and it's all very perfectly, beautifully compiled into this book. Like so many studies and experiments and case studies and testimonials and science, like legit science behind it, but a lot of it is very heavily suppressed here in the West. It's only recently, within the last year or two, that a semi-decent translation of this book has been available. Before, it was only a Google translation that was, if you were really committed, like I was, you could just about get through it, but it was practically intelligible. So there's a really powerful resurgence of this wisdom, and in a lot of countries that we in the West are conditioned to think are primitive or very restrictive or whatever, in many ways Russia is actually very forward thinking, and dry fasting is going to become more and more popular. There's a Russian guy that I've heard about who did a 27-day dry fast. And you know, we're kind of really looking here at just busting through all these myths about limitations around the power of the human body to regenerate and to subsist on other forms of energy other than food, you know, from the prana around us. There's so much energy.
And this journey of learning to trust the body again, it mirrors what's happening on a larger scale, where we're taking back our sovereignty, because we've been essentially slaves, if you think about it, for many centuries. We've been dependent on somebody else to tell us what we can do, where we can go, what our rights are. And actually, I also believe we're in a period of taking back our sovereignty, and that just mirrors what's happening in the body. The body has its sovereignty to heal itself, and that was something that struck me the first time I dry fasted, and I witnessed tremendous healing happening in my body, and it moved me to tears, because I've been trying to fix externally with nutrition and superfoods and putting more and more stuff into my body, and it was actually when I stopped doing anything, not even drinking water, and it was almost as though my body said, okay, great, thanks, now let me just get on with it, and it did. And it was very humbling for me to finally kind of start to realize, wow, it really does know what it's doing, and I don't need to be such a control freak.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, fasting is kind of the result of millions of years of evolution and nature with its divine intelligence, constantly adapting and changing and shifting. The concepts and the constructs that we operate, you know, calorie, nutrition, you know, all these different things, they're very defined concepts, and actually they've only been around for a very short period of time, whereas the wisdom of the body has developed innately over such a long time. And when we fast, what we're doing is surrendering to this divine wisdom. This program activates. That's one of our, almost like our yogic superpowers. And we forget, because we can cut our arm and we see it before our very eyes. Over a week or two or three, the wound literally heals in front of us. But somehow we've been so deeply conditioned to then not make the leap from that to something in your throat can be cleared and moved by the body, or leukemia, white blood cells, and all these things can be shifted and can be purged. But the body has to be given an opportunity to rest and has to have the energy to do so. And when 70% of our energy goes towards digestion, and we're eating consistently 3 meals a day, and there's so much deep programming around, like, you have to eat, because if you don't eat, you don't get energy, and the powerlessness of the transmission that is then carried by people who feel like unless they eat, they literally can't go on, and it's really just a measure of their toxicity. And the physical toxicity creates fear and creates ignorance in a way. We don't see the reality as it is because we project onto it these filters that we aren't even aware that we are putting on top of reality. And this is really the cause of suffering, because as soon as we step into what is and we align with nature and we stop fighting what is, we just surrender, which is really what the fasting is, this automatic program takes over and the body sorts itself out. And then the automatic shift that takes place in the consciousness.
Sometimes I think of the analogy of a lens, and if we're toxic, the lens has all these smears and specks of dirt on it, so it distorts or blocks some of the view that we're trying to observe. But then once you've cleaned the body, the lens is clean and we can see much more clearly. We have a much clearer perspective.
And I think the thinking is wrong, really. The thinking generally is, I have a problem, what can I take? It's actually, I have a problem, what can I remove? And this fasting, as you said earlier, is not new, really. I mean, Jesus did it and the Buddha did it. So, yeah.
It's this kind of focus we have at the moment on symptom suppression. Because of the fear consciousness, something comes up, a tumor, a rash, a depression, an insomnia, and instead of looking within and seeking to understand in what way are we not living in a balanced way, what is the body communicating to me, instead we go, oh no, I don't want it, it's bad, get rid of it, suppress it straight away. And medicine is basically equivalent to symptom suppression. And sadly, even a lot of it within the natural healing field, it's still very much focused like, okay, I'm not going to give you pharmaceutical drugs, but I'm going to give you this other thing that can basically suppress the symptom. Maybe it's
principles the same.
Exactly,
I totally agree with this.
And often, the things that have caused the disease or the symptom to come up in the first place are exactly the things that people then use to suppress the symptom. And by eliminating the things that have caused the cancer, the mucus and the acid forming foods, the stressful lifestyle situations, we come to peace and we come to balance. And it's not about needing to add anything, like you say, less is more. It's about what can I remove that is the cause of this symptom.
And it's so interesting if you think about that process that we go through as an individual. I need to kind of suppress this thing and I need to fix this problem, and then in fixing that problem I create 2 more problems.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing at a societal level. So when we have a societal problem, we create these intricate solutions which often cause many more problems. Rather than removing the causes, we're always building new solutions and we mess everything up. And I'm from the UK, and in the UK now everything is so complicated, even before COVID. So much complication, and we need more simplicity, including the way we treat our bodies. And it's just as above, so below, right?
Absolutely. Thank you guys, it's been really uplifting to share this space with you. Thank you for your wisdom and your openness, your transparency, your bravery. And I'm really grateful to the universe for bringing us all together. I feel like we're at the beginning of a really exciting journey. So let's see how it unfolds. Thank you, Sam.
Oh, and that other documentary is called Radical Remissions. I'd really recommend it. Lots of real life cases of people healing naturally from even stage 4 cancers and all kinds of things. Radical Remissions and the Truth About Cancer. Wonderful docu-series.
Beautiful. I'm going to add one more thing to that, and that is the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Arnold Ehret. He is amazing, and he's the father of the mucus-free teachings. A lot of Dr. Morse's work is based on Arnold Ehret's work. And I also highly recommend the Dr. Robert Morse YouTube channel, where he talks about all sorts of different diagnoses. Maybe you've got something yourself that you want to find out about. He might well have talked about it, and he shares a lot about iridology, the science of reading the iris of the eye to see what's happening within the body. And he's an incredibly loving and spiritual, and for me a very loving being who's here to really, really help humanity shift and come out of this fear consciousness and fixing consciousness into opening and surrendering. So plenty of resources for you guys to crack on with, and we'll join you again in part 2 and maybe further parts. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Simon. Namaste.